The movie begins in the San Francisco FBI department. Two police detectives, namely Frank and Matthew, sneak into the building using their authority as police officers. They break into a room reserved only for authorized personnel to steal data from a computer. They are looking for someone with specific bone marrow for an unknown reason. After a few minutes of searching, they finally land on a man named Peter J. McCabe. However, he turns out to be a criminal with murder, manslaughter, and assault charges. Peter is currently locked in solitary confinement for breaking an inmate's leg at Pelican Bay State Prison. Even though the guy has no formal education past grade 9, his IQ is over 150. Moreover, he has escaped twice and killed 2 policemen in the process. The second time, he burned them alive and used their IDs to confuse the police. Peter McCabe is not just a fugitive, he is an extremely intelligent sociopath who loves to play with people's minds. The next day, Detective Frank and the police captain go to meet Peter in the prison. The reason for their visit is unknown until Frank finally meets Peter and reveals that his 8-year-old son has leukemia. He desperately needs a bone marrow transplant, and according to all databases, the only person that matches is Peter. Despite finding out that he can save a kid's life, Peter doesn't want to get involved. He messes with Frank and makes him beg before telling him that he will think about the matter. Frank tries to change his mind by declaring that his son is Peter's only way of redemption, but a criminal like him doesn't seek redemption. All he wants is fun and freedom. Frank leaves the prison in desperation and goes to the hospital to meet his son, Max. There, he is met with more bad news, as the doctor reveals Max only has a few more weeks to live without a bone marrow transplant. She asks Frank to prepare himself for the worst, but he refuses to listen. It turns out that Max doesn't know that his cancer is back. He is excited about a new aviation book that his father gifted him and has no worries about the world. However, upon sensing his father's worry, the kid figures out something is wrong and inquires if he is going to die. Frank tells him about cancer, but lies that he has found a donor willing to participate. The kid is joyous, but he doesn't forget to tell his dad if the transplant fails, he should know that he tried his best. Just then, Frank gets a call from the prison. Peter has finally agreed to the transplant, but wants to meet Max before he confirms it. Frank is a little skeptical, but he promises to bring the kid the next day. In the following scene, Peter and Max are together in a room. Peter asks the kid to call him Uncle Pete and talks to him for a while before promising to be his donor. Max runs to his father in excitement, but the criminal has a bunch of demands before they proceed with written consent. He wants to get out of solitary confinement and be able to socialize with other inmates. He wants his smoking privileges back, and he should be allowed to use the prison library, which also consists of a computer with access to the internet. The prison warden is not cooperative enough to grant such demands at first, but after Frank pulls some strings, he agrees. Then, we see Peter being given a cigarette, which prompts him to sign the consent forms. Right after the police leave and he is alone, Peter ties his shoelace to his thumb and dislocates it. This is the first step to his perfect escape plan. Meanwhile, Max is worried that he is going to receive bone marrow from a criminal like Peter. His father asserts that receiving blood from an old person doesn't make you old. Likewise, Peter's sins have nothing to do with his body. In the prison, Peter continues the preparations and approaches a secret drug supplier. The man doesn't want to do business with him until Peter threatens him. He wants an ampule of an anti-drug named Narcan, used to treat people who have OD'd. The supplier asks what he wants to use the drug for, and Peter claims that everyone will know in time. While the supplier works on getting his hands on the drug, Peter uses the library computer to study the map of the hospital he's going to be at. He tricks the guards by pretending to play chess. Because he is equally good at it, they never suspect him. Any nerd that good at chess can't be dangerous. In the meantime, the police force prepares the hospital for Peter's arrival and ensures complete safety. There will be several helicopters flying above, and an army will escort him to and back from the hospital. A night before the big day, the supplier gives Peter his daily dose of medicine, but he hands him 2 cups, one of which contains the drug he asked for. Alone in his cell, Peter ties the ampule to a thread and ties the other end to his teeth. He then swallows the ampule to pull it out when he needs it. After that, finally comes the day of the transplant. Hundreds of guards in several vehicles bring Peter to the hospital. He is taken to the OR in restraints, but they have to be removed when he is kept on the bed. The guards do not waste time before tying his hands again, unaware of his dislocated thumb. The doctor sedates him to initiate the transplant, but just then, Peter drinks the content of the ampule. The anti-drug prevents him from passing out, which shocks the doctors as well. But by the time they catch up to his plan, he has already pulled his hand out. He uses a gas pipe to attack the doctors and guards in the room before making a run for it. Frank, who had been watching the commotion from the upper floor, runs to their aid. He helps them before turning his attention towards the fugitive. Peter slides down the laundry chute and wears a doctor's coat to disguise himself as one. Despite having a chain tying his legs together and a gunshot wound on his leg, the man isn't worried. He goes to a room with laser guns and threatens a doctor to break the chains with them. After that, he runs to the emergency room to get a shot of morphine for the pain, but Frank catches him in the act. Peter holds a scalpel to Max's doctor Samantha's throat and demands that Frank give up. When the detective tries to shoot Peter, Samantha reveals that if he dies, the bone marrow will be useless and Max will never get the transplant. Suddenly, a policeman named Wilson appears from behind the curtain. He points his gun at Peter, asking him to let the doctor go. In a moment of panic, Frank gives up his gun to Peter so he can defend himself. The act ensures his departure from the police force, but all he cares about is saving his son. As Wilson and Peter negotiate, Frank comes in between them, refusing to let Peter get hurt. A shootout ensues where the fugitive kills another policeman and hurts Wilson gravely before running away. When the captain arrives with his team, he berates Frank for letting people get killed for his son's life. Frank is arrested for his erratic behavior and is to be sent to the police station. However, when they are outside the hospital, he throws the policemen into a crowd of reporters and escapes. Back inside, Max bleeds from his nose, and Dr. Samantha is tending to him. Officer Matthew is also with the two, but is attacked and knocked out by Peter. He demands that Samantha reveal where the cyclopropane is kept in the hospital. He also promises Max that he will send her back as soon as she helps him find what he wants. Not wasting any more of his time, Frank drives a bike into the hospital and continues looking for Peter. He goes to Max and makes sure the kid is okay before helping Matthew. Max reveals that the fugitive was talking about propane, which gives Frank an idea of where they might have gone. Keeping Matthew to take care of the kid, he runs outside. At the same time, Peter makes Samantha put 2 tanks of propane into a bag and asks for directions to the electrical room. He is planning to blow up the place as a distraction to escape without getting caught. However, Samantha takes him by surprise and hurts him before running away. She meets Frank in the hallway, who begs her not to tell the police because they will kill Peter. The doctor agrees and goes to tend to Max. Peter and Frank meet outside the room with propane, but Peter has an upper hand because Frank cannot kill him. He blows up the room and runs away yet again. The explosion also causes the entire electrical system of the hospital to shut down, including the ventilators and the lights. Matthew moves Max to the old building of the hospital, joined to the new one through a bridge. While trying to follow them, Frank notices that Peter is also moving to the old building. As he crosses the bridge, the team below starts firing at the criminal, but Frank saves his life by shooting at the light they are using to locate him. By now, the SWAT team has entered the hospital, which means Peter doesn't have long before he is either caught or killed. To gain leverage over the other guards, he holds their team leader hostage. This allows him access to the control room, which he uses to put the entire hospital into lockdown by closing all the doors. Meanwhile, Samantha is told that the kid is in desperate need of a doctor, and she needs to be in the old building as soon as possible. Frank hides her from everyone and gets her to the other building, gaining an appreciation for his efforts from Peter, who is watching them on CCTV cameras. Still, he doesn't allow him inside the building. Frank manages to convince him to let them in, promising to be on his side. After being let inside, Frank and Samantha go to see Max, while Peter plays out the next part of his plan. He brings the hostages on the roof as a distraction, knowing that the captain and his team will be on the bridge joining the buildings. He has laid a tank of propane near the bridge to kill them. Frank figures out his plan and saves the captain and his team's lives by blasting the propane when they are not on the bridge. Now, the only people in the building are Peter, Frank, Matthew, Max, and Samantha. The latter 3 are inside a locked room. Outside, Peter and Frank meet each other, and Peter threatens to kill him. Max quickly opens the door to save his father, but ends up being held at gunpoint because of it. Peter then acts out the last part of his plan and uses the kid as a hostage. They go to the morgue, which has a way to the tunnels underground. This was Peter's original escape plan all along, as he had the map of the tunnel he acquired from the internet. He makes a hole in the wall and apologizes to the kid. He would have helped him if he could, without wasting a chance at freedom. Peter then leaves Max there and runs through the tunnel. With only half an hour left to sunrise, he is sure to be lost in the rush hour traffic. Having found out his plan, Frank follows him closely and sees him driving away in a blue vehicle. He steals a police car and uses the policeman's ID to ask for help from the control room. After driving for several minutes, he finally sees the car about to get on a bridge. Calling the bridge operator, Frank pretends to be the captain and manages to trap Peter again. As they face each other in a showdown, the captain and his team appear on a helicopter. They fire at the criminal, but Frank takes the bullet to save him. When Peter tries running away again, Frank shoots him, causing him to fall into the sea. With his remaining strength, Frank saves Peter and is brought back to the hospital. The transplant finally takes place, and Max is saved. He returns to consciousness to a happy father waiting for him. In another, more secure ward, Peter is still alive. He asks the guard if the kid is okay. Suddenly, the bed starts moving forward, and the guard realizes his gun is missing. The movie ends as Peter holds the gun to his head and inquires what kind of car he drives. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.